These are the jobs you may not see every day, but just know we're working hard to make Hillsborough County a better place to live, work, and play. Subscribe to our YouTube page for more great county-related videos, only on HTV.
This is Dave. Dave doesn't know his home's flood zone and was not able to heed flood warnings. Dave and his home are soaked. This is Noah. Noah is an informed citizen. He was warned in advance about potential flooding in his area. Noah took precautions. Noah is dry.
And I saved the animals too.
Good job, Noah. When it comes to flood warnings, be like Noah, not like Dave. For more information, visit hcfl.gov.net. Be safe, be informed, know your flood zone.
Hey, would you do me a favor? Grab your phone or smart device and open up that camera. Then point it right here at the QR code. Do you have it? I'll wait a second. When you see the link pop up on your screen, give it a tap. You ready? Boom! Welcome to the Hillsborough County official YouTube channel. We've got all sorts of videos here, all about what makes our community such an awesome place. From local events and community highlights to what's in the perfect Cuban sandwich. We've got it all. We're always adding new things, so while you're here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss a new video. Here's that QR code again, just in case you missed it. Go ahead and check it out. Ooh. This must have fallen out of that video. This really is the perfect Cuban sandwich.
Good evening and welcome to the November 13th, 2023 Zoning Hearing Master Meeting. I'm Pamela Jo Hatley and I'll be serving as your Zoning Hearing Master this evening. Before we get started, if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, again, I'm Pamela Jo Hatley, and I'll be serving as your zoning hearing master this evening. If you have any noise-making devices, would you please silence those at this time? And meeting's brought to order. Ms. Heinrich, would you please introduce staff and any agenda changes?
Sure. Myself, I'm Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. With the County Attorney's Office, we have Cameron Clark, and with the Planning Commission, we have Bryce Farringer. And we do not have any changes to the agenda, just the published changes, if you'd like me to go over those.
Please, thank you.
Our first one is A1 PD 23-0287. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A2 PD 23-0472. This application is being continued by staff to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A3 Major Mod 23-0518. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A4, PD 23-0540. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A5, PD 23-0583. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A6, PD 23-0584. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A7, Major Mod 23-0617. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A8, PD 23-0618. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A9, PD 23-0622. This application is being continued by staff to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A10, which is standard rezoning 23-0714. This application is being continued by the applicant to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A11, Major Mod Application 23-0768. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A12, Standard Rezoning 23-0771. This application is being continued by the applicant to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A13, PD 23-0774. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A14, PD 23-0775. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A15, PD 23-0776. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A16, PD 23-0780. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A17, PD 23-0781. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A18, 23-0783. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A19, PD 23-0785. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A20, PD 23-0848. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 16th, 2024 ZHM hearing. Item A21, Major Mod 23-0881. This application is being continued by the applicant to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A22, PD 23-0882. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A23, Major Mod 23-0883. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A24, Major Mod 23-0887. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the January 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. Item A25, Standard Rezoning 23-0902. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. And item A26, PD 23-0918. This application is out of order to be heard and is being continued to the December 18th, 2023 ZHM hearing. And that concludes our continuances.
All right, thank you, Ms. Heinrich. All right, the agenda tonight consists of items that require a public hearing by a hearing master before going to the Board of County Commissioners for the final decision. I will conduct a hearing on each item today and will submit a written recommendation. My written recommendation will be filed with the clerk of the board within 15 working days after the conclusion of today's public hearing. The Board of County Commissioners will consider the record of today's public hearing and my recommendation and will make the final decision on the application at a publicly noticed meeting on a date and time set by the Board of County Commissioners. The hearings today will be informal. I will ask questions related to the scope of direct testimony and may call and question witnesses as I deem appropriate. I will decide all questions of procedure. I will take evidence, but will exclude evidence that is irrelevant, immaterial, or unduly repetitious. Evidence may be presented in written form, and all testimony shall be under oath. Hearsay evidence may be used to supplement or explain other evidence, but shall not be sufficient alone to support a finding of fact unless it would be admissible over objections in a civil court action. The order of presentation will be as follows. First, county staff will introduce each item. The applicant and the applicant's witnesses will have 15 minutes to present the proposal. County Development Services Department will have 5 minutes to present findings and recommendations. Planning Commission will have 5 minutes to present its finding of compliance or non-compliance with a comprehensive plan. Proponents will have 15 minutes to present arguments in support of the proposal, and opponents will have 15 minutes to present arguments against a proposal. County staff will then have 5 minutes to present any amended recommendations, and the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal and summation. The 15 minutes for proponents and opponents is the total time allotted among all the speakers. So if there are a number of persons who wish to speak, the 15 minutes will be distributed among them. And if that is the case, you may wish to designate a single spokesperson to represent your views. All right, when you come to the microphone to speak, first please state your name and address for the record. The meeting is being recorded, so please speak into the microphone so your testimony can be recorded. And when you're finished speaking, see the clerk to sign in for the record. The clerk is here on my left. All right, now we'll hear from the county attorney's office for some procedural requirements for requesting oral argument at the Board of County Commissioners meeting.
Thank you, Madam Hearing Officer. Good evening. My name is Cameron Clark. I'm an assistant county attorney. Tonight's public hearing is the first step of a two-step rezoning process. This hearing is a time for rezoning applicants and interested parties to present testimony and evidence. Any evidence presented tonight will become the complete factual record of each application, and no additional evidence can be introduced after the closing of each application. The second step of the rezoning process is a public meeting before the Board of County Commissioners, where the board will take a decision on each application heard tonight. Tonight's applications are scheduled to be heard by the board at the January 9th, 2024 land use meeting. When considering applications, the board will only review the record created at tonight's hearing and the recommendation made by the hearing master for each application. The hearing master will file a recommendation for each application heard tonight on December 6th. The Board of County Commissioners has established a policy that directs which rezoning and major modification applications are to be placed on the consent agenda of the board's land use meeting. Applications that propose to add density outside the urban service area, and applications that are on roadways with a failing level of service, are not qualified for placement on the consent agenda. Applications who do not have consistent recommendations of approval or denial are also not qualified to be placed on the consent agenda. Finally, applications that have had evidence or testimony provided into the record by non-applicant parties of record, either prior to or at tonight's public hearing, are not qualified for placement on the consent agenda. The board shall allow public testimony by parties of record at its meeting to consider the hearing master's recommendation for any item on the regular agenda. Any public testimony shall be limited to the record of the proceeding before the hearing master tonight unless additional evidence has been found admissible in accordance with section 10.03.04D of the Land Development Code. A party of record is an individual who fits in at least one of the following 4 categories. First, someone who's present tonight and presents testimony or documentary evidence. Second, someone who's certified by the U.S. Postal Service as having been mailed notice of tonight's hearing. Third, someone who submitted documented evidence to the master file at least 2 business days before tonight's hearing. Or fourth, someone who submitted documented evidence by proxy at tonight's hearing. Again, the content of oral argument before the board shall be limited to the content of the testimony and other evidence submitted verbally or in writing to the hearing master tonight. It's the role of the county attorney's office to ensure that only individuals who have met these requirements are allowed to speak before the board, and to ensure that no new evidence or testimony is introduced or allowed at the board's public meeting. For these reasons, please make sure all information you wish the board to consider at its public meeting is entered into the record tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. All right, all testimony tonight must be taken under oath. So if you plan to speak, please stand and raise your hand and I will swear you in. If anyone is online who plans to speak, also raise your hand to be sworn in, please. All right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Heinrich, I believe we're ready to call the first case, please.
Sure. Our first case is item B1, Major Mod Application 22-0671. This is a major modification to PD 20-0287. This has been remanded back to the hearing officer at the applicant's request. And Tim Lampkin with Development Services will provide staff findings. And also to put on the record for this application, this will be heard at the January 8th, 2024 CPA BOCC hearing here in this room at 6 p.m. Again, it's January 8th, 2024, 6 p.m.
All right, thank you.
To move them? Okay. Good evening. William Malloy, 325 South Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. As Michelle indicated, this is a remand. Probably 60 days ago, we should have taken a continuance, but we did a remand instead. The case that we're bringing tonight before you is almost entirely the same as it was previously. The 3 options remain the same. There's a commercial option, option A. There's an option B for townhomes. And then really the point of what's been contention, option C, is for a multifamily project. Again, just to reiterate, we've kept the same traffic counts from the original rezoning back in 2020. We've agreed to a doubling of the preservation area, which has to do with a taking for some right-of-way. And then the big delta between why we're here tonight and last time is we have agreed to formally reduce our height to 45 feet. We were ready to do that last time, but we didn't have it in the proper place on the record. And then we did remove our request for an infill bonus because the Planning Commission felt that was inappropriate. So that's the summary of the changes. Ms. Albert's going to present her findings as a professional planner next. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. For the record, Isabel Albert, 1000 North Ashley Drive, Suite 900 with half, representing the applicant. So again, you've seen this before. The major difference was, the making sure we put into the record that we're reducing the height to 45 feet. But also, the plain language, it also meets all these objectives, and you've seen those again, making sure that we're directing growth in the urban service area. We're located right in the middle of it. We do meet the minimum density at the proposed 20 units to the acre, and the compatibility concerns that was raised by Planning Commission, which is going to be addressed through zoning and through the zoning site plan. And anytime there'd be changes, that's always going to be re-looked at every time there's going to be a change to it. So what we have here is the, protection of the neighborhood by reducing the height to 45 feet. It's to be noted that the second option of the commercial and office commercial portion is already approved for 60,500 square feet of commercial and office. It has a 50-foot setback. Meanwhile, we're providing, 45 feet. Sorry, this is the townhome option that's approved for the 45 feet. And then we're addressing that transition with the multifamily portion of it, where we have reduced it to 45 feet and a greater setback than the townhome and the office portion as shown here. It is currently permitted for 45 feet with the townhome option. It's to be noted that across the street, the planned development is already approved for 10 units to the acre. That was done back in '96, and yes, it's developed with single family, but it was a single family, multifamily project that it was approved for that. And just to the south, the zoning district to the south does permit the 50 units to the acres. So the request is really compatible with the surrounding area with the larger buffers and limiting of height. Housing element, obviously, big, lot of goals and policies in there that we meet. It's to be noted that we are located on two of major collector and arterial from the county, as seen on the map 3, shown here. And then we are also a part of the Gibsonton Community Plan. This plan is more directed towards the Gibsonton area, and they're more specific in their policies. And this is where they would want to, enhance the neighborhood by revitalizing older residential area, revitalizing outdoor mobile home parks, and incorporating single-family residential units and rental units to have a wider range of housing choices. And this is the workforce policies where they definitely encourage that, as well as walkability that's being provided currently along the major roads here. Next, it brings me to Mr. Jim Johnson, who is going to be presenting. Thank you.
Okay, before you step aside, please, could you speak a little bit more to the density? It seems that was the big concern. How many townhomes? There's a townhome project.
There's a townhome project that's approved for 110 units. We're proposing 199 units. Grand scheme of things, the townhome project, they had, a smaller setback. They're approved at 45 feet. And our proposal, even though the density is higher, we are still building it with, reducing the height, increasing the setbacks. And these are all planning techniques that addresses compatibility that's discussed in the comprehensive plan when it says not the same as, but through perfect good site planning, you can address these things. And we feel that through this development, this is being addressed.
And what about the footprint of the proposal compared to the town, proposal C compared to the townhomes that are approved?
Well, the townhome footprint would be, they didn't do a true concept layout, but just from the development, for the setbacks, they didn't have to oblige to the 2-for-1. So they had a 20-foot setback along the perimeter. They could be built there with probably the retention pond sort of where we have it. And our proposal, we've shifted everything back, even with the same height, but it's more compact, so lesser impact.
So as far as the visual, the way it would look then to the surrounding community, compare that, the townhome proposal and this proposal.
Well, the townhome proposals are, limited to 6, 8 units, 12 units, and these structures are going to be throughout the site. With the multifamily, it's more compact. It may be it's longer, and a bit wider, but in this case, we've presented them in front on the foreground along the major collector and arterial roads.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
If I could add to, Madam Hearing Officer, we are below the maximum density, potentially, if everything goes through. We've agreed in the conditions to cap it at 199. I think the 7 acres, if we got the R35, obviously could go a lot higher than that. So,
Okay, and so you're below the density based on the requested comp plan?
Yes, ma'am.
amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Officer. My name is Jim Johnson. I am the applicant owner. My address is, for the record, 19255 Hidden Oaks Drive, Brooksville, Florida. Maybe just to clarify Billy's clarification, because it's easy to get lost in all the numbers and everything. The townhomes are capped at 110 units under the comp plan. We would be able to do up to 142. I just want to bifurcate that, and the 199 is for option C, the apartments, and we would be able to do approximately up to 240 some units if we went to the maximum for that. So I just want to make sure that those numbers are aligned to the specific projects. So what I'm going to do today, we already have on record kind of our community history and background. Don't want to repeat that, but we do have kind of an evolving vision, and so we do want to cover that for your benefit and everybody else's benefit today. And so I'll go through that. If you look at Gibsonton, there's no deniability that there's really limited housing choices for the community. Really, if you go to the area and you kind of box it around an area of Sims Road up to Gibsonton Drive, 41 over to the interstate, what I have sort of called the core area of Gibsonton, there's just really no choices for any type of other housing. And so one of our projects options that we're really focusing on is the apartment option. And we're trying to bring that in under a kind of an affordable type of theme for that, especially for younger families and such. So, I just want to give some perspective. We didn't do this last time. I thought it would be important to kind of raise this. Really, with the single-family resident products that are in the area, it's really challenging for a lot of people to afford based on the current market that we have right now. I did some research. A lot of this is off of Zillow and other public sites, but you're looking at a typical 4 or 3-bedroom home, about $2,500 in monthly mortgage payments. Rent is going to range from about $2,200 to about $3,000. And I think the challenge that we have, especially for a lot of working folks in service industries and things like that, that it's very challenging to find housing that exceeds $2,000. I actually know that firsthand. I'm a landlord in the area for 20 years. I still have rental properties in the area, and I know just from years of working with and a lot of individuals, that's a real breaking point. I know all of our properties are underneath that threshold. Okay, so I think it's important to kind of emphasize on why there's no apartments in Gibsonton. If you look at Gibsonton, it is a traditionally lower income community that has not supported market rents found elsewhere in the Tampa Bay area. Again, there are no apartment communities in that community, and really there's a need for that housing choice there. And because of that, developers have historically not had incentives to build apartments in Gibsonton. And so that kind of brings us to where we're at today, is that we have a multi kind of game plan here, and a big part of it up front is to try to get supportive zoning in order to affect and overcome some of those financial challenges. And I'll discuss here in a minute, just because you zone it, they will come. Unfortunately, in this case, that won't be the case. We're going to have our work cut out for us with still going after some private-public partnerships and stuff. But really, our goal here is to kind of break that status or paradigm where we don't have that as a housing choice in Gibsonton. All right, so getting to really kind of the meat of what I wanted to cover today is, so what is our project's vision? Well, our project vision are having an apartment complex located in the heart of Gibsonton. We talked at the last ZHM, and we won't repeat it today, but I'll just mention it briefly. The project is ideally located. It's within a half a mile of a charter school. It's about 3/4 of a mile from a very large retail complex with movie theater and such. And so I think for folks that are, housing challenged, are also transportation challenged. And I think that is really a key kind of jewel, a part of our project, is that not only what we're doing, but where it's located. Just to add to what we talked about last time, and evolving, we really are trying to target and have a project that looks for individuals with AMIs under 120%. And then this is probably the newest sort of theme and vision that we're trying to go for, and we're excited about, is we really want to have a project that's dedicated to military families and other public servants. We feel that's an underserved area of the community, and so that's part of our project vision. I do want to give you just sort of an idea, because I'm going to show another slide that's in support of this in a minute. But this is from FEMA's website, and it shows what the area median income is for Gibsonton. And you hear a lot of, when folks talk about affordable housing, what is affordable housing? You have areas ranging from 80%, 100%, 120% of AMI. Under state statute, affordable housing is anything under 120%. But this puts it in perspective of what it is. And if you take that $89,400 figure and kind of our project vision here, where does that serve? How does that come in with some of the other folks that we feel would be well served by this project? If you look at an airman's salary, public school teacher, sheriff, military and public servants, you can certainly see they're well within the AMI of 120%. So it's not a stretch that that project can serve a lot of members of our community. Okay, and I am, I'm both a veteran and a landlord. I mentioned the landlord before. I've long known about challenges with the military to find affordable housing. I know as a landlord, I have seen many people over the years come from MacDill Air Force Base because they simply can't afford to rent in South Tampa. And so part and parcel with that is also costly transportation challenges. And so what we've done is we've tried to proactively approach HART. We reached out to HART and the county's capital programs department. We're pleased to say that we were able to negotiate and have the construction of a bus pad as part of a future bus stop that's going to go in there. We are, as the applicant, going to pay for that construction. And additionally, we have agreed to a significant increase to a prior preservation of right-of-way required for the county's roundabout project. Continuing on with the bus stop, and also the fact that I want to say it's the bus stop with co-locating families together. I think some of the things, that we're going to explore are potential dedicated busing service to MacDill Air Force Base and also carpooling. There's also the opportunities here with both of those coming in line for reduced traffic. This gives you a visual representation of the right-of-way. We are committing and contributing over 50% of the total required right-of-way for the county's project. And then that brings us to today. Our focus again is to bring a viable, affordable housing project, focus on military families and also public servants. And as my last slide here, we are post-zoning, but I think it's important for you to know our vision. We want to explore partnerships and including with Hillsborough County, whether those are private, public, or both partners, seeking available state grants and other funding. And we also want to continue to explore with community leaders, especially with the Air Force Base and other public service groups. There you go.
Perfect timing.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, development services.
Good evening, Tim Lampkin, Development Services. Since it's a remand, do you want me to go into detail or do an overview?
Just an overview would be fine.
Okay.
And touch on the changes from last time and staff's findings.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the subject application was remanded to tonight's ZHM hearing at the applicant's request. Applicant modifications include reducing the maximum height from 65 feet to 45 feet to create greater compatibility between the proposed multifamily residential development and the existing development near the subject site. And option A has stayed the same. There are no changes from when it was previously heard. Option B is also staying the same to allow up to 110 dwellings unless they do the gray water density bonus, which is a state statute, which would allow them a 35% increase. Option C is the change, where they propose the multifamily development up to 45 feet in height and up to, they haven't actually changed any of the other numeric metrics regarding the number of units. The applicant stated there is a condition limiting them to 199 units. If there is because there's a companion comprehensive plan amendment, CPA 22-18, to change the future land use designation from residential 6 and residential 9 to residential 20, which would allow a maximum of 20 dwelling units per acre for a total of 142, and the affordable housing density bonus would allow up to 35 dwelling units per acre as allowed in the residential 35 for a total of 249 would be the exact number. However, the applicant does propose a condition restricting it to a maximum of 199 units. There are the same design exceptions. They have not changed, and transportation didn't re-review it because there aren't any transportation impacts with the changes that were made, and staff finds it supportable with the revisions, and that concludes staff's presentation.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Planning Commission?
Good evening, Madam Hearing Officer. Bryce Faringer, Planning Commission staff. Before I begin my official testimony, I just wanted to touch base on the building height. In the staff report that the Planning Commission submitted, it states that the building height was revised from 75 feet to 45 feet. That correction should note that it was revised from 65 feet to 45 feet instead. The subject property for this case is located within the residential 6 and residential 9 future land use categories. It is in the urban service area and is located within the limits of the Gibsonton Community Plan and the South Shore Area Wide Systems Plan. The subject site's future land use categories are currently pending change by HCCPA 22-18, which is a comprehensive plan map amendment that would change the site's designation to residential 20. This major modification is considered concurrent and dependent on the approval of HCCPA 22-18 by the Board of County Commissioners. The residential 6 future land use category is located north, east, and west of the subject property. The suburban mixed-use 6 future land use category is located to the south and further east. Each of the development options are contingent upon the approval of HCCPA 22-18, which the Planning Commission found inconsistent due to compatibility concerns. Although the development options would allow for increased residential and non-residential development within the urban service area, staff has found that the scale of each option would create compatibility concerns, thereby conflicting with policy 1.4 of the future land use element. Even if the accompanying future land use map amendment through HCCPA 22-18 were to be approved, it is still not certain that compatibility mitigation measures could be met. The proposed major modification is also inconsistent with future land use objective 16, policy 16.1, policy 16.2, and policy 16.3 of the future land use element. The request does not protect existing neighborhoods, as none of the residential developments within a 1/2 mile radius of the subject site exceed 6 dwelling units per acre, making the request incompatible with the surrounding densities. Planning Commission staff recognizes the need for alternative housing options. However, appropriate transition of density and compatibility is a required component for new developments. The applicant has revised their building height from 65 feet to 45 feet and has placed the building in the southeastern corner, which provides more distance between the use and the adjacent single-family uses. Although this measure aims at mitigating adverse impacts, the proposed development would still not allow for appropriate transition of density and compatibility. The proposed modification is inconsistent with the Gibsonton Community Plan and the South Shore Area Wide Systems Plan. Although certain development options provide a range of housing choices, the overall proposed densities from option B and C cause significant compatibility concerns, as the development pattern does not support this type of increased density. Additionally, option A would allow for commercial development in an area that is not located or identified within the desired area for such development by the Gibsonton Community Plan. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
All right, thank you. No questions for you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in support of this application? Do not hear anyone. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? All right, do not hear anyone. Development Services, anything further?
No, ma'am.
All right. And applicant, did you have anything further to add?
Yes, ma'am. William Malloy again, 325 South Boulevard. I do want to clarify that we're a little, well, I'll put it this way. Option A is pre-approved, so to speak. We did not increase the entitlements, the square footage, or anything. So a finding of inconsistency on the approved use is a little bit, well, news to us in this case. The same with option B. It's the same use that's been approved. There is a potential to increase the density with the comp plan amendment, but again, the townhomes were previously approved. Option C is the only de novo request. Just want to make that clear, and I want to make it abundantly clear that, especially with the alleged incompatibility of the commercial, the trips were calculated and agreed upon, and they're codified now in our conditions that nothing is increasing from what was pre-approved. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you. All right, then this closes the hearing on major modification 22-0671.
Our next application is item C1, standard rezoning 23-0782. The applicant is requesting to rezone property from RSC4 and CI to CI. Jared Folan with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Hearing Officer. Logan Opsahl, 215 North Eola Drive. Great to be with you this evening and staff. As outlined, this is a request for a rezoning for a small parcel. It's actually an assemblage of 3 parcels. It was at 6.98 acres, just under 7 acres. The request is actually dealing with just under 0.4 acres, 0.39 acres, which is currently zoned RSC4. The remaining parcels within the assemblage are zoned commercial intensive. And so the request tonight is to have the portion of the property that was zoned residential be brought up to be consistent and compatible with the other parcels within this property. It should be noted, and this is outlined in the staff report, that there were 2 smaller parcels, so a total of 3 within the assemblage. So those 2 smaller parcels have gone through the certified parcel process with the county. We've also had discussions with FDOT, transportation, and other planning staff working through this to simplify the request today before you to have this 0.39 acres of the overall property be zoned consistent with the remainder of the property in the surrounding area. As noted in the staff report, the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and compatible with the surrounding area as concluded to by staff. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, just because you mentioned it, the certified parcel process, did that accomplish putting all 3 parcels together as one parcel? Is that what that did?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. So today it's considering the overall parcel although the majority of the parcel is zoned commercial intensive, we're dealing with just that small portion of the property, now one with the certified lot process to be all deemed commercial intensive.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Development Services.
Good evening, Jared Folan with Development Services. So yeah, this is a request to rezone 6.95 acre split lot from residential single-family conventional 4 and commercial intensive to commercial intensive. The applicant is seeking this rezoning to make the zoning consistent across the property and to prepare for redevelopment in the future. The majority of the property is zoned commercial intensive already, with only about 0.39 acres being zoned RSC-4. So this subject property is located at 5420 Causeway Boulevard and is within the Greater Palm River Community Plan area and the Tampa Urban Service area. The current use on the property is inside and outside storage, and it contains 2 metal warehouses, and a single-family home exists within the ROC4 portion of the property and is currently vacant. In the surrounding area, uses consist primarily of intense commercial and light-heavy industrial uses, with most properties being zoned commercial intensive and manufacturing. A few properties in the area are zoned residential, but they're isolated few and generally surrounded by other commercial and industrial properties. This portion of the subject property zone RSC4 is completely surrounded by commercial intensive and other commercial and industrial uses. Given the context of the surrounding uses and zoning districts, it is clear that the existing residential zoning on the property is not compatible with the area and would be better utilized for commercial and industrial uses. Based on this, staff finds the proposed zoning to commercial intensive to be compatible with the existing development and zoning trends in the surrounding area and finds the request approvable. There are no restrictions with this request, and no other agency has objected to the request. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions other than I seem to have a revised staff report, so that's in the optics, then I can pull it down from there, I'm sure.
Yes, it is.
All right. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Planning Commission?
Good evening, Bryce Fehringer, Planning Commission staff. The subject is located within the Office Commercial 20 Future Land Use category. It is located within the urban service area and is also located within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. The subject site is surrounded by Office Commercial 20 to the north, east, and south. To the west is the light industrial future land use category. Further south is residential 6, and further northeast is residential 9. Planning Commission staff finds that the proposed request to change the zoning category to commercial intensive is consistent with the type of development desired within the urban service area. Staff also finds that the proposed rezoning is consistent within the site's future land use designation of Office Commercial 20. The proposed rezoning also meets the intent of Objective 16 and the associated neighborhood protection policies. The site is located within an area that's already surrounded by several intensive commercial uses, and so there are no conflicts with any type of neighborhood protection policies with this section of the plan. Based upon these considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development, or finds the proposed rezoning, consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in support of this application? Do not hear anyone. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? All right, do not hear anyone. County Development Services, anything further?
No, ma'am.
All right, and applicant, anything further?
I'll just thank you all for your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This closes the hearing on rezoning 23-0782.
Our next application is item D1, PD 23-0369. The applicant is requesting to rezone property currently zoned CGR to PD. Tanya Chappella will provide staff findings after the application's presentation.
Right. Good, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening, Hearing Officer Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. This is a rezoning from CGR to PD. We're located in the Seffner area. A little closer, you'll see we are located on Highway 579. I-4, I-75 are good markers for you to see the location well. This is as the property appraiser has it. So the issue is rezoning from CGR to PD, which typical are light industrial uses as proposed are manufacturing, processing, recycling, and storage of materials as predominant uses, and is indicated in our narrative. So the BOCC approved the comp plan amendment to LIP in January of this year under HACPA 2213. That was approved unanimously. I do want to place emphasis that we've had no opposition at all through the entire process of the land use amendment, nor up till now that I'm aware of. That would include 3 hearings, 5 notices, and 5 big yellow signs. Rezoning now clearly is brought forward for consistency under Objective 9. Future land use regulations shall be consistent with the zoning. So looking at the site, you see the site there in red. The Taylor Road County landfill is abutting on the east. The new Amazon warehouse and manufacturing uses on the south. Cass Crete is on the west. Development Services recognized the landfill, and it's also a hazardous waste facility, recognizes the concrete plant with open storage and warehouse distribution. And Planning Commission also notes that there's heavy industrial uses that are similar in nature in the general vicinity. But clearly what is driving this site tremendously is the Taylor Road landfill and hazardous waste, which is a 42-acre Superfund site, which is the major use and major activity in the area, which again abuts this site. When you look at the existing land uses, you see there's industrial to the south, heavy commercial down towards the intersection, and again, the landfill. And the future land use map shows that, of course. A very important finding is in December 21st, 1995, and actually I need to correct that date, it was February 2nd of 95, the Board of County Commissioners established a specific land use policy on County Road 579 from Pruitt Road South, which we are in, and allowed for commercial office use along County Road 579 due to the unique circumstances of the county landfill and the existing non-residential development pattern in the area. That was 25 years ago or so. So it was recognized at that time that this area is driven by the Taylor Road landfill and what was then some of the commercial uses that were starting to appear. That's echoed in the Thonotosassa Community Plan to allow commercial uses along 579 south of Pruitt Road, which we are located in as well. So on the ground, this is the new Amazon warehouse, which again does allow manufacturing. This is Cass Crete, which has a lot of outdoor activities and storage, as you can see. So there's three options of the site plans, or three different options that are proposed. One is several freestanding buildings at 82,600 square foot with a 20-foot building setback. Option two is one large building, 160,000 square feet with a 49-foot building setback. These are all B landscaping called for. And option three is no structures proposed 20-foot buffer. Again, that would be a B buffer. So we're asking three variations, which I tried to summarize. One is the 30-foot C to the 20-foot B on all borders, or on the three borders, not on the roadway. 90-foot setback to a 20-foot setback on the three borders. And on the north and south, a 90-foot required setback to a 49-foot setback. On the east would be 90 feet to 79 feet. So in a diagram, what would be required under the buffer distances, by our count, removes approximately 52% of the buildable area of the site, which is overwhelming and we think excessive. So that's why we've asked for those variations with some other reasons as well. Oh, sorry. So when you look at the staff concerns and drilling down specifically to the staff, they basically have two primary issues. Not speaking for them, it's pretty clear from the reports, about compatibility with residential uses on the north and south, which we look closely at. So when you look at the site, there is one home to the north. The other structure is a barn-like structure. On the south, there's 3, 4, maybe 5 mobile homes. Those are the only residential uses that are abutting to the north and south. There's none that abut other than that. So specifically, the owner on the north has no opposition. The owner to the south has no opposition. I've actually spoken with both, and in the record are emails from both of them. They're both owned by the same family, the Mannings, and they have absolutely no concerns or opposition whatsoever. And this is the emails from both the Mannings. As I showed you the slide, the other reason for the variations is the excessive setbacks. And those are more effective or cause more impact on the property because it's rectangular and deep. So this type of setback on the three sides really affect the site more than others. So I think, again, placing emphasis that the commissioners a long time ago recognized and created a specific policy recognizing what uses and what type of developing uses specifically are arising at this location. Part of that is because when you look at NIH and other sources, residents living close to landfill are prone to respiratory diseases. Garbage and litter surround the community is cited as a serious problem. There's a presence of a landfill and the unsuitability of just people wanting to be located next to a landfill. Contamination of the air is a serious problem. Bad odor is obviously a bad problem. Dust, and clearly living close to a landfill creates difficulties in the sale of a property. And again, that's recognized by the Thononis Housing Community Plan as to where intensive uses should go. When you look further out, that policy finds itself, you'll see Amazon at the very top of the slide. Lazy Days is a multi-use. You have the landfill, which continues, Flying J Travel, Truck America, Gator Ford, Lazy Days, hotels, restaurants, and gas. So this roadway and this direction of development is well established as commercial and outdoor and intensive uses. Now, very interesting, when you look at the Amazon approval, that project was approved with a 20-foot Type B screening, which is exactly what we're proposing. And this is a little clip from that approval. So when you look at that approval, you'll see our site in between us and Amazon warehouse is the site where residential is located. And they're equally positioned in the sense that you have a 20-foot B that borders the residential, as on our site, we're proposing a 20-foot B. Seems to be working really well. And when you look even closer at the Amazon site, they have extensive exterior truck parking, idling, loading, storage that goes on, which are similar to uses that we would have at this site. And we would propose the same 20-foot B buffer that was approved immediately to the south. Now, the other thing we put into the record is that we have submitted for the existing residential homes a 100-foot exterior activity exclusion zones. So whatever uses are permissible under uses what we're proposing, there would be a exclusion zone of 100 feet from existing residential. And this shows approximately the 100 exterior exclusion distances as I pulled them on Google. We're also proposing additional screening on the north and the south for the residential uses, which would be 8-foot trees at the install, 15 feet on center, 3-foot hedge, and a 6-foot opaque fence. Well, there'll be a fence anyway. But we wanted to provide some additional screening at the existing residential uses, which are 4, 5, or 6, to respond from staff's concern. So in summary, rezoning is required for consistency. Future land use was unanimously approved by the Board of County Commissioners with no opposition in January of this year. Uses, zoning, future land use categories are very intensive in the immediate area and vicinity. The specific BOC directive and policy related to this immediate area, along with the Thononis Housing Community Plan, which is pretty much in sync. I think critically, again, there's been no opposition of repeated hearings and notices. Provided additional screening, residential for the exterior uses. Similar buffer and screening is provided on the south and has worked very well. And we do, Transportation Department has reviewed as in support. So with that, we appreciate your attention. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I guess my questions would really ask you to address the issues in the comprehensive plan, the policies that were found to be inconsistent, or this request was found to be inconsistent with.
As I recall those, they're primarily directed towards incompatibility. And I think the critical factor is that we brought forward in writing no opposition from the affected owner to the north and the affected owner to the south. Additionally, not to beat a horse here, there's been multiple hearings, multiple notices, and multiple signs posted, and no one has come forward. So staff looks at compatibility policies. We presented to you that those people who would have compatibility concerns have no opposition, and that's on record. And then along with that would be the Board of County Commissioners policy and the Nonasassa Community Plan policy, which directs towards intensive uses in this area.
All right, and you did state that the LIP land use category was approved earlier this year. Is that correct?
That's correct. We brought that forward, and the county commissioners approved that, and I will place emphasis, they approved it unanimously in January of this year, correct?
And so the proposed PD zoning then is for manufacturing. The current CGR zoning allows some commercial uses. Could you compare, talk a little bit about what could be there under the current zoning compared with what could be allowed under the PD, the proposed PD?
What would allow commercial uses on the site, which would be similar to uses in the media area. And I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
What would some of those uses potentially be under the existing zoning?
So they would be commercial in nature, which could be intensive or could be impacting to neighbors. But again, as we presented to the budding neighbors, the list of uses in the narrative as proposed under the PD would be similar. Some might be more intensive, but would be in a category that could be similar or more intensive.
And the proposed manufacturing, the proposed PD zoning could allow uses, you described it as being potentially buildings, but would there be outdoor activities too, outdoor manufacturing activities?
Yes, as shown on the PowerPoint, yes, we have not looked at, there's no restriction to those uses being exterior. So yes, and I do want to place emphasis, the narrative is very specific on the uses to be or proposed, and those could be interior or exterior, correct?
Okay, that's fine. All my questions, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, development services.
Good evening, Tania Chapela, Development Services. The existing zoning is commercial, general, restricted, which permits general commercial uses except for restaurants with drive-through windows and convenience stores with fuel sales. I just wanted to add maybe to your question before, if I got it correctly. At least 4 of the proposed uses, open storage, manufacturing, recycling, and warehouse uses are not permitted under the existing commercial, general, restricted. Even if it's not restricted, those uses are deemed permitted in the CI or the M zoning district. The proposed uses are similar to some of the existing development across Mango Road. I'm sorry, I just missed the first part. I'm sorry, I just got away from my report speech. The proposed zoning for planned development is to allow manufacturing, recycling, warehouse uses with outside storage, support offices, and ancillary uses in 3 development options. The proposed uses are similar to some of the existing development across Mango Road to the south. These include a concrete plant with open storage and a hazardous waste facility. Additionally, a nearby warehouse distribution development, Zone PD 180704, allows up to 0.5 FAR of manufacturing uses. Per the Planning Commission staff report, the proposed intensity is consistent with what can be considered in the light industrial plant category. However, the proposed development options pose compatibility concerns given the residential uses to the north and south. They are more intense in nature and do not consider the uses located in the residential Res 4 category immediately abutting the site. Per the Land Development Code, Section 60606, buffering and screening provisions, A 30-feet buffer type C screening is required to single-family residential uses adjacent to the south and north. And also per the Land Development Code, Section 60101, Note number 8, height restrictions, an additional 60 feet setback is required to allow the proposed 50 feet high building, resulting in a total of a 90 feet setback requirement. The applicant requested PD variations and waivers from those requirements, proposed a 20 feet buffer type B screening to single family residential, and provided the following justification. The first one, 2 90 feet setback areas would reduce operating and buildable area and represents approximately 52% of the total property area. Some screening exists on the adjacent parcel. Additionally, the applicant proposed a condition to prevent open storage uses within 100 feet radius from each existing residential structure. So, staff finds those justifications are not supportable, while the proposed conditions do not suffice to compensate the lesson in mitigation measures described above. Although the adjacent parcel to the east contains a similar development intensity, design efforts did not prioritize the location of structures along towards the eastern boundary, rather than allocating this along the areas abutting residential properties to the north and south. Also, the existing manufacturing and light industrial development in the area presents a height of 50 feet or less. A similar PD to the south of the mobile home park that is adjacent to the subject property has a maximum building height of 50 feet with an 80-foot setback with type B screening. In contrast, as noted, the subject requests a maximum building height of 50 feet with building setbacks of 20 feet setbacks. So that's for option 1, and 49 feet for option 2. So I'm going to stop my reading here, because I wanted to emphasize that even though the southern PD has a 20-foot setback as the same, the actual setback is different. I mean, the buffer is 20 foot, but the setback is 80 feet versus the proposed 20 feet.
Is that a requirement in that PD?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is a requirement.
Okay. Question for you about the buffering and screening requirements. The 30-foot buffer type C screening is required. Is that the case with the existing zoning, or that's as well, or?
Well, that goes by use, by the existing use, and the 30-foot buffer type C is the most intense possible relation between uses.
Okay.
So maybe under the CG, if that was an office or maybe retail, that would be different. I don't have the matrix with, I don't recall that one.
Understand.
Maybe different, maybe not, but.
But definitely it applies to the proposed PD.
It does,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to extend much. Should I continue?
Only if you have more to say. If you're all done.
I am not done, but okay. If allowed, the proposed building height will not encompass the surrounding building scale, introducing an incompatible bulk pattern. So the applicant did not provide sufficient justifications to deviate from the type C screening, which includes the requirement of a 6 feet high wall in addition to the type B screening requirements. So pretty much, instead of adding to the basic requirements, his proposal is to go lower is not providing more impact mitigation measurements, but actually requesting less, and that's pretty much the main concern from staff. And that's why we cannot support the case. And we support, or we are with Planning Commission staff findings. And based on these considerations, we do not support the case. As best mitigations efforts shall be made, overall the request is not supportable. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Planning Commission.
Good evening, Bryce Faringer, Planning Commission staff. Please note for the record that a corrected future land use map for this case has been provided to county staff as well as the clerk. The subject property for this case is located within the light industrial plan future land use category. It is in the rural area and is located within the limits of the Thanoto-Sassa community plan. The subject site is surrounded by residential 4 to the north, west, and south. Public, quasi-public is located to the east. Additional light industrial plant is located further south. The overall intensity of the 3 development options is consistent with what can be considered within the light industrial plan future land use category. However, these options present significant compatibility concerns with regard to the established residential uses to the north and south. The proposed development options are more intense in nature and do not consider the uses located within the residential 4 category located immediately abutting the site. The proposal is therefore inconsistent with Objective 8 and Policy 8.1 of the future land use element. Similarly, the proposal conflicts with the intent of Objective 16 and Policies 16.1, 16.2, and 16.3 of the future land use element. The proposed buffering techniques do not provide an adequate transition of intensity between the subject site and the adjacent residential land uses. The development options do not complement the surrounding residential area. While the site meets the criteria of Policy 16.5, proposing building setback from the roadway negates the intent, which is to place higher intensity non-residential land uses on major roads rather than directly next to residential neighborhoods. Objective 12-1 and Policy 12-1.4 of the community design component within the future land use element provide guidance on compatibility for new developments. Although there are heavy and light industrial uses that are similar in nature in the general vicinity, the proposed development options are not sensitive to the residential uses located to the north and south. The proposed massing and scale of the light industrial uses as currently shown on the site plan do not achieve compatibility as described in this policy language. The site is located within the limits of the Thanoto-Sassa community plan. The proposed plan development meets the intent of the plan as it allows commercial uses along State Road 579 south of Pruitt Road to Interstate 4. However, it also strives to protect the area's rural character, and the proposed site plans are not sensitive to the low to medium density residential uses that are located to the north and south of the subject site. The light industrial uses as shown on the site plan do not protect the existing rural neighborhood character. Based upon these considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds this proposed rezoning inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
All right, thank you. I don't have any questions for you. I have the revised map. And before we move to the public, I just wanted to note also I have a revised staff report from Development Services, and I want to make sure that gets into optics. Thank you. All right, is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in support of this application? Do not hear anyone. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? All right, do not hear anyone. Development Services, anything further?
Michelle here, Development Services. I would just quickly add to your question from before. The current zoning of CGR, that would mean they have to comply with all that zoning district standards, which includes setbacks, height, meeting the 2-to-1 and buffering and screening versus the proposed PD, which is asking for variations.
All right, thank you for that. Applicant. And in your rebuttal, Mr. Pressman, could you address the staff finding that the requested variations are not mitigated in the site plan?
I think there's two elements to that is that, number one, we specifically respond to that provided the 100-foot exterior activity exclusion zone and the additional screening, which is specific to the residential homes. And again, speaking with the neighbors who would be affected, and on the record, they have no opposition. So the incompatibility adjudged by staff, we believe is, lack of a better term, null and void, because the very people who would be impacted by it have no objection and have received many and numerous notices, conversations with myself, big yellow signs. I would also note that falls in line again with the Board of County Commissioners, which is a very specific policy. I think that's a very important finding, and I think that directs this type of development next to a landfill, which is, quite frankly, a horrendous thing to live next door to. If I answer your question, I'd like to go back to one slide, please.
Yes, that's fine.
What I'd like to note is Tanya, who always does a good job, she noted that the setback of the building to the south from the residential property is 80 feet. But I would bring to light again that there's an extensive exterior truck use, storing, loading, idling. You can imagine how many trucks are coming and going for Amazon. So you may have an 80-foot building setback, but your outdoor activity is probably 24/7, I would assume, and 'cause I get my stuff from Amazon sometimes in one day or the next day, and it's a very loud activity.
And to your point, it appears from the visual on the slide that the loading and so forth, the idling is on the east side of that parcel, not really adjacent. There's a vehicle use area adjacent to the residential parcel. But is that the way you understand it as well?
That's I understand it from the aerial, but I think when you're dealing with a Amazon and manufacturing site that is extremely busy and very close to the north property line, you have tremendous impacts. And clearly the point I'm making is that while staff is rightly saying that there's a big difference between what we're proposing and what Amazon was approved at, I don't think I don't agree, we don't agree with the point, because there are extensive and extremely impacting 24-hour day, 7-day week, loud activities that are occurring on the residential property, or close to against the residential property, whether it's east, north, or west.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pressman. All right, that closes the hearing on, which one are we on? 23-0369.
Our next application is item D2, PD rezoning 23-0517. The applicant is requesting to rezone property that is zoned AR to PD. Tim Lamkin with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Or do you have to enlarge it to the other one?
You normally enlarge it.
I'm sorry, you normally enlarge it? Mm-hmm. Okay, and where's the up and down arrow?
Right here.
Okay. Okay, yeah, got it. Good evening, I'm Gina Grimes, with the law firm of Bradley, Arent, Bolton Cummings, 100 North Tampa Street, and I'm here tonight representing the applicant, CJDW Riviera, on this rezoning from AR to PD. Here are some site information. You can see that this site is located at the northeast corner of Interstate 75 and Fowler Avenue. It's a big site, 15.64 acres. The future land use is SMU 6, and the current zoning is AR. The current use of the property is vacant. The previous use was a landfill, another landfill, that was operated in this instance by Hillsborough County. Our proposed use is commercial intensive uses. It is in the county's urban service area. Service will be provided by Temple Terrace, and there is no registered neighborhood associations. These are some pictures, photographs of the site. You can see on the bottom two panels that those are the aerial views of the site, and I would ask you to take note that on the periphery of each one of these, each on this side and on this side, you can see the dense existing vegetation that we're going to propose to retain, and the images in the top are just images of the site, again vacant, with accessory structures and vehicles and equipment on it. So going down on the street, it's bordered by 122nd Avenue, and then it also it connects to Old Morris Bridge Road. So looking where this star is located and looking down 122nd Avenue, you see that there is a large berm along the property boundary. Here's the property right here. Here's the central driveway. You can see that the first residence on the north side of 122nd is a substantial way down from the center of the site. And also, again, the purpose of these photos are just to show you how high this existing berm is, how much higher these trees are up in this area than the roadway. It's actually an elevation difference of about 10 feet. Again, the property and then the berm along the road.
Ms. Grimes, would you go back one more slide, please?
Can you pause my time?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
One more slide. Thank you.
Yeah.
And could you show me again where that berm is?
Yes, this is the subject property right here. And the berm runs along the northern boundary of the property, which is this area right here. So when you're looking west this way, down 122nd, here is that berm. Okay. So on this photo up here, you can see the existing vegetation and trees, several oak trees, several camphor trees, some of which are fairly substantial. And then there's also, brush on the ground, and then all that existing vegetation exists along that northern boundary of the site. And we're going to propose to retain that.
Does it go all the way across that northern boundary?
Actually, it does. It okay. Hang on. If I can go back to this photo. Okay, so this is looking east, I'm sorry. This is looking east. Here's the central driveway. So you can see all of that dense vegetation along that whole northern boundary. And in a minute, I'll show you where it connects to the Swift Mud property that's also to the east. And again, on that portion of the property too, we're gonna be maintaining a lot of that existing vegetation. It connects up to a wetland on that side and some significant wildlife habitat.
Thank you.
Okay, so the surrounding properties, here we go. You have the subject property right here, and then you have the I-75, which is to the west, and Fowler Avenue, which is to the south. On the east is the Swift Mud property, several hundred acres owned by Swift Mud, dense wetlands and significant wildlife habitat. Across from the subject property, and this is the key area with respect to this whole application. So directly across from the property, you have a property that is almost entirely designated as, delineated as wetlands, and it is vacant property. Then you have 3 single-family homes, and then you have a mobile home with open storage. And this property has historically been used as open storage. I'll show you some aerials in a little bit, but it's a mobile home with the larger area of the property as open storage. This property to the west, sort of what we call catty corner, is actually being developed right now for what we're told by the person on site as self-storage. So going down on the street, you have Old Morris Bridge Road. This is looking north. There's a small produce stand called Misty's Market that's along that area, and for some reason, there's all these abandoned vehicles. I don't think they have anything to do with Misty's Market, but they just happen to be abandoned cars and trucks and trailers and so forth that are just left there on the side of the street. This blue star shows that mobile home parcel along with the open storage, and you can see from these photos you have various different, there's the mobile home, you have various different open storage throughout the property. It has a history of open storage. You have telephone poles stored here, boats, and various different vehicles. And then you have the Caddy Corner property, which is this property right here. Looking right at the site, you can see it's under construction. There's either a construction trailer or a residential trailer right there. So let's go now to the history of the property, which is that it was operated by Hillsborough County as a landfill from 1962 to 1969. But what it appears to us to look like is that portions of the property previous to that were operated as a borrow pit. The use of the property as a landfill, I have here is by code definition as industrial. It's listed as one of the, as a use that's permitted in industrial. It's not specifically defined in the code as industrial, so I just wanted to clarify that. But this western portion of the site was the borrow pit area, and this eastern portion was the trenches that were dug for the landfill. They reportedly accepted, residential, commercial, industrial waste, construction and demolition debris, drums containing pesticides and other questionable materials, and that's all from our environmental information that we obtained. I want to show you these aerials because I think they're important for a couple different reasons. I have a 1957 aerial here. These were either taken by FDOT or by the USGS. Here you see the site in 1957, and what's interesting about it is that it was before I-75 was constructed and that on-ramp. So you can see this activity right here was borrow pit activity. Also interesting, this area to the north where the residents are also appears to have been part of that borrow pit. So then you fast forward to 1960, oh, and I'll know, there are no houses at that point in time. So it was being operated, the area was being operated as a landfill, industrial borrow pit type facility. Why? Because it was located at the intersection of Old Morris Bridge Road and Fowler Avenue. You can see in 1965, you can still see that intersection present, but in 1965, you have the houses there. So the houses were constructed at a point in time when a borrow pit and a landfill were already in operation. This was an industrial-like area.
All right, welcome back to the November 13th, 2023 Zoning Hearing Master meeting. We're going to reconvene, and we're ready to call the next case.
Our next case is item D3, PD 23-0519. The applicant is requesting to rezone property that is currently zoned RMC 6 and CI to PD. Tanya Chapella will present staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Good evening, Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson. I am representing Tampa Family Health Centers this evening. Oops, I'll give you this little slide. This is, for reference, this is an existing facility on Bears that is associated with this application. Tampa Family Health Centers is a not-for-profit organization providing health services, a variety of health services to the underprivileged residents in Hillsborough County. A little bit of background. So the site in blue, outlined in blue, is zone CN, and that's the site that you just saw, the existing facility. That was purchased in 2019 by Tampa Family Health Centers, and it was developed and CO'd in 2021. In 2021, they also had the opportunity to buy the parcel to the south, which is zoned currently CI. That was developed into overflow parking, and then they even more recently had an opportunity to purchase the RMC6 parcel, and at the same time they were talking about building a women's care facility to provide specific care to women and children at that location, and it really made sense, a lot of sense for them to consolidate, have a single campus where convenient for staff and for patients. And this is the existing development. You see the overflow parking lot. That parking is not needed for that existing facility. It was just overflow parking, and we've now incorporated that into this PD. The request is for 11,600 square feet of medical office. That's a 0.16 FAR where 0.25 is allowed. Our building height is 20 feet, 1 story. We're providing the required 20-foot type B screening to the east, and then we are asking for the variation for 4.59 spaces per 1,000 square feet. That's consistent with other approvals based on ITE trip generation. Most recently, the Moffitt site in Ruskin was approved at that transportation rate. And what that does is that allows us to have this site have its own compliance with zoning with respect to parking, and the northern site be compliant with parking. The reality is they both will have extra spaces, but we wanted to go ahead and entitle it so they could be standalone parcels. And we are providing bicycle parking at 5% for every 1,000 square feet. Staff reports look great. The Development Services finds it supportable based primarily on it being less intense from the existing approved CI zoning. We're maintaining the buffering and screening, and it's an overall trip generation reduction. Planning Commission does find that we're consistent, or I won't say consistent with the comprehensive plan, but we are meeting in the intent of the neighborhood protection policies, as well as the overall community design objectives and policies. So what's the issue? Commercial locational criteria. As you just heard, the point of commercial locational criteria is to avoid strip commercial and to provide a scale of new commercial development that's consistent with the character of the area. There is a policy exception for that commercial locational criteria for office uses when providing a buffer between existing commercial uses and residential uses, and where a parcel is unsuitable for residential development. And I think we have that here. However, the issue is we're not asking for an exception from being located within a node. We actually are within a node. Arguably, we're at an intersection of a major roadway and a major local roadway. And the definition of the major local roadway is to connect two or more collector or higher roadways and I'm not exactly sure why they selected to use the term and/or, be a primary access road to at least 500 dwelling units. I think the idea was the primary access road was really the driver. If you were providing a local road for more than 500 residents, you were going to be deemed to be a local road. Planning Commission reads that differently. They read it as either or, not and/or. And so they have determined that we cannot seek a waiver from the maximum square footage allowed at the node, which would be 5,000 square feet. This is a unique location. The roadway is Bears Avenue, and you see it's this is an area where it transitions from, it kind of goes east-west and then south to the north and then west to east again, or I'm sorry, east to west again. And you can see along that roadway, there's not a lot of people that utilize that roadway. To the west, you have a lot of industrial development, and then to the east, you've got some residential development taking primary access off of 148th, but not many. We've counted about 200 residents taking access off that roadway. And I think the point of that policy was we want to limit commercial activity and commercial uses from intrusion into the neighborhoods, right? And so if you have a local roadway that people are using on a regular basis, you want to limit the traffic on that roadway for the commercial development. And you can see here that there's a industrial use that's directly across the street to the south on 148th. And it's really definitely, the RMC6 parcel really is not suitable for residential development. So by all other means and analysis, this use, the location is appropriate and compatible, but because of this seemingly arbitrary rule in the comp plan that you can't exceed 5,000 square feet if you happen to be in an intersection, does not prevent this to be supported by, or this prevents it from being supported by the Planning Commission. And I really don't think that this was the type of example that was envisioned with the commercial locational criteria policy. And I think that it kind of points out the problem with having a one rule that is mandatory to all situations and can't be considered for a waiver. I do think that the non-residential uses that are allowed by right are much more intensive than this proposed use. CI zoning is a convenience store with fuel pumps, with contractors' offices with open storage, restaurants and drive-throughs. And then we could have non-residential uses on the RMC6 parcel, such as a school, including a charter school, church, a daycare. So overall, the allowable zoning is far more intense than what we're proposing. And lastly, I think the legal status of the plan is something we can lean on, where it says that no one specific goal, objective, or policy shall be construed to, or applied in isolation from the other goals. And really what we have here, all the other goals of the comprehensive plan support this. There's just that one policy regarding the size of the square footage that's permitted here that's preventing the Planning Commission from supporting it. And our team is here if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Who do you have here with your team? Do you have a planner?
Do not have a planner.
Okay, all right, that's fine. All right, thank you. That's all I need then.
Okay.
All right. Development services.
Good evening, Tanya Chapela, Development Services. The existing zoning is RMC6, residential multifamily, and CIR, commercial intensive restrictive, which permits multifamily residential uses and intensive commercial offices and personal services uses, except for fast food, restaurants, convenience stores, gas stations, and any drive-through service, commercial vehicle repair, sexually oriented business, liquor stores, farm and garden supply stores, community hospitals, mini warehouses, and domestic vehicle sales. The proposed plan development would allow a maximum of 11,600 square feet of medical offices and ancillary uses. The proposed uses are compatible with the current commercial intensive allowed uses and is compatible with the surrounding commercial uses. The proposed FAR is allowable in the Res 6 comprehensive plan category. Furthermore, the proposed building area will not intrude into the required setbacks, nor will decrease the required buffers or screening. Additionally, the proposed FAR will have minimal impact on the transportation network. Per the transportation staff, the proposed modification would result in a decrease in maximum potential trips generated by the subject site. Given the above, staff finds the proposed rezonings to be compatible with the surrounding properties and in keeping the general development pattern of the area. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to conditions. This concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Planning Commission?
Good evening, Bryce Faringer, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the Residential 6 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and it is not located within the limits of a community plan. Residential 6 surrounds the subject site directly to the north, east, and south. Directly west past Beers Avenue is light industrial. Further east is Residential 12, further southeast is public, quasi-public, and further south is Residential 20. Further west is Office Commercial 20. The proposal is consistent with Objective 1 and Policy 1.4 of the future land use element, as it encourages compatible growth within the urban service area. The request is also consistent with Objective 16 and its associated policies pertaining to neighborhood protection. The revised site plan submitted on August 2nd depicts adequate transition of intensities between adjacent land uses, thereby meeting the intent of this policy direction. The subject site is located within the Residential 6 future land use category and is subject to commercial locational criteria for non-residential uses. The subject site meets commercial locational criteria established by Objective 22 and Policy 22.2 of the future land use element, as it is located within 300 feet of the nearest qualifying intersection of East Beers Avenue and East 148th Avenue. Based off of the site's proximity to the qualifying intersection, it is limited to a maximum of 5,000 square feet of non-residential development. The proposed total of 73,616 square feet exceeds this maximum and therefore directly conflicts with the established commercial locational criteria. Although Planning Commission staff have minimal compatibility concerns with the nature of this request, the proposed square footage would allow for development that is inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Based upon these considerations, the Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
So, but for that one little detail, huh?
It is, yes. And our staff approached this application wanting to touch base on some of the other factors that apply to this case, and so that's why we did state some of the objectives and goals and policies that it does meet. However, with that one factor, you know, kind of like Ms. Corbett expressed, there's no waiver to sites that do meet commercial locational criteria and the square footages that they're limited to.
All right. I understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in support of this application? Don't hear anyone. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? All right, don't hear anyone. Development Services, anything further?
Just one item to put on the record. I do see in the staff report, in Development Services staff report, we incorrectly have Planning Commission's recommendation noted as consistent, and as you heard tonight, it is inconsistent. Is their finding.
Thank you very much. All right, applicant.
Cami Corbett for the record. And again, I just think it points out the irony of sort of, and probably some of the flaws in the existing commercial locational criteria, that if I were outside of the intersection, I could be as big as my FAR would allow me to be at 0.25, but here when we comply, we actually are not able to do even close to what's permitted under the future land use category.
All right, thank you very much. This closes the hearing then on rezoning PD 23-0519.
Our next application is item D4, PD 23-0522. This is a rezoning request to PD from property currently zoned PD 06 1687, PD 220440, and AR. Chris Graylenard with Development Services will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
Wait till you're ready. Good evening, Cami Corbett again with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson. I'm here this evening representing Eisenhower Property Group. Subject site is located south of Big Bend on Simmons Loop, just east of the interstate. And as Michelle indicated, there's a long history, so I prepared this graphic for some of the neighbors that had some questions about what we were actually proposing. I thought it'd be a good one to show. The last major modifications of the two PDs, Simmons Village North, which this PD is known as, and Simmons Village South, were processed in 2020. And those modifications dealt with a realignment of the transportation network and several different things. Those properties have full construction plans and are under development now. The modification area for the alternative land use pocket is comprised of the blue modification area of the existing zoning and then the purple add-on parcels. And but for the county's rule that says that when you add parcels to a PD, this would be considered a major modification and might have been a little bit easier for the public to follow along that we were modifying something that was already approved. And again, in the yellow, you see what's approved and under construction, and then the alternative land use pocket with the add-on parcels there in the green. And what we're doing is we're removing the entitlements for 2 approved charter schools, and then we are adding up to 200 more units either of townhomes or multifamily. Again, these uses are already approved within the PD. We are just adding additional land and then adding those additional entitlements. We did have to redo all of our design exceptions, so we have quite a lengthy transportation report, but essentially we're not seeking any reduction to the required improvements that are necessary to support this PD. And that was very much the focus of much of the email traffic and also the telephone calls that we received from the surrounding neighborhood, very concerned with that the gate dancer extension down south through Belmont and understanding the timing of that. And I think the fact that there are construction vehicles out there and it really looks like it's under development probably helped explain to everybody what was actually happening with this request. Otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward request. It's been found consistent by the Planning Commission, and DSD is recommending approval. And with that, we're here to answer any questions should you have any.
All right, thank you. No questions for you. All right, Development Services.
Good evening. Chris Growlinar, Planner with Development Services, here to present application PD 23-0522. The approximate 162.45 acre property is comprised of 4 parcels. The applicant seeks to rezone the 4 parcels to PD 23-0522 to retain the existing mix of approved uses and allowing flexibility within the mixed use, quote, alternative land use pocket, unquote, for any mix of up to 600 multifamily units or 400 townhome units or nursing home and extended care facilities at a maximum of 120 beds, at a maximum density of 6 units per acre on the eastern side of Gate Dancer Road. The portion of the PD on the western side of Gate Dancer will consist of 250 single-family units. The maximum number of units may not exceed 950 units. The site is generally located on the west side of the intersection of Simmons Ranch Court and Simmons Loop. Surrounding area consists of single-family residential, multifamily residential, agricultural, and commercial. To this north, the subject property is adjacent to agricultural rural, agricultural AS1 and PD 21-0969. To the south, the property is adjacent to PD 061147 and agricultural rural. To the east, the property is adjacent to agricultural single family, PD, and agricultural rural. To the west, the property is adjacent to agricultural rural. Also, Interstate 75, US 301, and County Road 672 are all in proximity to the site. Also, St. Joseph's Hospital is neighboring to the north. The subject property is designated Suburban Mixed Use 6 on the future land use map. The Planning Commission found the proposed use consistent with the comprehensive plan. The surrounding uses are similar to the request, residential. The proximity of the property to Interstate 75, US 301, and County Road 672 is conducive to the higher levels of mixed-use residential traffic. Also, neighboring St. Joseph's Hospital provides an important residential support use. Therefore, the rezoning of the subject property from PD 06-1687, PD 22-0440, and agricultural rural to PD 23-0522 with the mixed-use alternative land use pocket and 250 single-family lots would be consistent with the existing zoning pattern of the area. Based on the suburban mixed use SMU 6 future land use classification, the surrounding zoning and development pattern, and the proposed uses for the planned development district. Staff find the request approvable, subject to proposed conditions. That concludes my staff report. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. No questions for you.
Thank you.
All right, Planning Commission.
Good evening, Bryce Faringer, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the suburban mixed-use 6 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and is located within the limits of the Riverview Community Plan and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. The subject property is surrounded by the SMU 6 future land use category on all sides. The residential 4 future land use category is located further east across US Highway 301. There is a small pocket of community mixed use 12 to the northeast. The urban mixed use 20 future land use category is located further north. UMU 20 and CMU 12 are also located further west across Interstate 75. Each of the development options for the alternative land use pocket would encourage compatible residential growth within the urban service area, making the proposal consistent with Objective 1 and Policy 1.4 of the future land use element. The maximum allowable number of dwelling units for each option are also within the limits of the site's suburban mixed-use 6 future land use category, making the proposal consistent with future land use element Objective 8 and its associated policies as well. There are approximately 5.8 acres of wetlands located on the subject site. The site plan outlines open space areas on the southwestern area of the site, which is consistent with Objective 14 and Policy 14.6 of the future land use element. The application's coordination with EPC is also consistent with Objective 3.5 and Policies 3.5.1, 3.5.2, and 3.5.4 of the Environmental and Sustainability section. The proposed rezoning meets the intent of Objective 16 and its associated neighborhood protection policies. The request includes development options that are complementary to the surrounding area. The density, lot sizes, housing types, and increase in acreage to the alternative land use pocket will preserve and enhance the surrounding area and are therefore consistent with this policy direction. Objective 19 and Policy 19.1 of the future land use element establish requirements for mixed-use land use categories. Each of the alternative land use pocket development options qualify as the additional land use to the proposed 250 single-family lots and are therefore consistent with this policy direction. The request meets the intent of the Riverview Community Plan, which encourages attractive residential development and housing diversity. It is also consistent with the economic development objective of the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed rezoning consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the County Development Services Department.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in support of this application? Do not hear anyone. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Please come forward.
Hello. I'm Stephen Munich at 6806 Simmons Loop, Riverview, just to the north of the south project that they're speaking of. The proposal that they have today, I'm not currently in opposition of. I had a couple statements I wanted to make for the record and a couple concerns. The first statement is that I did have a concern initially that the roadway that it's being redone between Gate Tracer, I guess it is, and Simmons Loop may interfere with my property line. They've given me some information that shows that it wouldn't do that, as well as a fence that I was concerned about on the north end. And they've also provided me with a print that shows that the fence looks like it will be there. So my hope is that those things will be done. My concern is that we do have a lot of people walk up and down the road. We got sidewalks on both sides. Obviously, a lot of people in the area right there. Speed has become a problem. We get the officers sit out there quite a bit and pulling people over. One officer that I spoke to clocked somebody at 65 one time. It's a 35-mile-an-hour zone. So as development's picked up, people have used Simmons Loop as a cut-through, and therefore think they can beat lights and zoom through there. What I would like to see, I guess, to maybe have speeds not increase any further would be to address something at the Simmons Loop Gate Dancer intersection. I believe it's just going to be a T intersection right now. I had mentioned to the developers at the break that it'd be nice to have like a turnabout or at least a three-way stop so that traffic can not be unimpeded going north and south, which I know they would like, but for the residential people and the people walking, they don't need to be near 65-mile-an-hour traffic as well. So I'd just like that for the record, that if there's something that they can do differently besides a T intersection there, that would be fantastic. And then the other question, I guess, would be is what the county has in store, if they've thought about or planned anything to ensure that I won't lose any water pressure out of the current line that will now support an additional 800 plus homes. So that's about all I've got.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
Be sure and sign in with the clerk.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? All right, don't hear anyone. Development Services?
I just wanted to make sure that you did receive, Rosa possibly passed it out to you during this meeting, the revised report.
I do have it, thank you.
Yeah, it does have some updates to some transportation conditions.
Okay, thank you for that.
And that is in optics as well.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, applicant.
Cami Court again for the record. I'm going to ask Steve Henry to come up and address the transportation issues.
Thank you.
Good evening. Steve Henry, Links & Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. So Gate Dancer, which is the roadway that he's speaking of, is actually already been designed, permitted, and is under construction. So the intent is that there will be a stop sign control on the east-west portion of Simmons Loop Road. There are some curves that were put into Gate Dancer to try to slow the traffic down a little bit, but at that intersection, it's already designed, permitted as a T intersection.
Okay. I guess there were other issues he raised about speed, pedestrian safety, that sort of thing.
Well, there are sidewalks being built on Gate Dancer as a part of that, and we're stubbing them out to the north to the extent that we can tie them into existing sidewalks that are there to the north and to the south. So there will be, from a pedestrian standpoint, that. As far as speeds, obviously there will be speed limits on the road, but there's no speed bumps. Since that is a collector road, there won't be any speed bumps or anything like that to be able to slow traffic down as you would see on a local road from that standpoint.
Okay. All right.
All right, thank you. That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
And with respect to the water pressure issues, the county is very proactively dealing with the water pressure requirements down in South County, and I think those projects are coming along. And we're not allowed to do anything at site development that would negatively impact any off-site water pressure.
And this is all in the urban services area, so it's
Yes.
all county
Yes.
Water.
Correct.
Okay. All right, is that it?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. This closes the hearing on rezoning PD 23-0522.
Our next application is PD rezoning 23-0777. The applicant is requesting to rezone property that's currently zoned RC6, PD, and AS1 to a PD. I've reviewed this for development services and will provide staff findings after the applicant's presentation.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Cami Corbett again with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson. And this time our team does include a planner, and I'm going to ask him to make the presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were waiting on me.
I was looking for eye contact. Just to make sure.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Stephen Spazzato. I'm a certified planner with Level Up Consulting, 505 East Jackson Street here in Tampa.
Okay.
We are proposing multifamily residential on a near 9-acre site that fronts on Causeway Boulevard. That's in the urban service area. The limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan, and is designated Res 9 on the future land use map. And I think the theme, I guess, of my presentation, if I'm not too repetitive, is this is where density wants to go, should go, and not just from a larger context, the sort of neighborhood context, as well as sort of the immediate, what is found immediately adjacent. And I believe there's also a consensus to that finding from the review agencies as well. From an efficiency standpoint, density benefits from being proximate to major employment centers, as well as transportation facilities. As you can see, where our site is relative to downtown Tampa and to major transportation facilities, including 41, 301, 75 in the expressway. Zoom in a little bit to the neighborhood context. Causeway is a revitalizing urban corridor with a mix of uses. Recent projects are highlighted on the map, and they include Santos Flats, which is a multi-story apartment complex, Causeway Commons, which is the same, and the Meridian, which is further to the east, and then Crosstown Center, which includes the Coca-Cola facility. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more to the immediate vicinity, showing that the project is consistent with massing, scale, and intensity. To the north is Causeway Boulevard and then commercial. West is a stormwater pond that is owned by the FDOT, and then further west is a power line easement. East, again, is Santos Flats, and then south is 32nd Avenue South. We are proposing up to 238 units. It does include the flex of the Res 20 designation. We satisfy the criteria for flexing. And the max density also reflects the state available gray water density bonus. So this graphic kind of highlights some of the key site features, including the max building envelope, open space areas, and circulation. Primary access is to the north to Causeway Boulevard. We have emergency access on 32nd Avenue South, and a cross access into the Santos Flats community. And there's also cross access provided within that PD as well. Setbacks conform to the Land Development Code, and we're not seeking any variations or waivers. This graphic just shows some of the developments I mentioned before, just in terms of the scale, massing. Again, the Meridian's on top. Santos Flats is to our east, and then Causeway Commons, that's recently constructed, is to the northwest. With tracking with this request is PRS 24-110. So if you look at this image, the yellow portion of our site is overlain by a PD that dates back to the mid-'80s. And subsequent to that PD, the FDOT purchased the property and constructed a pond and a ditch to support the widening of Causeway Boulevard. And the result of both the PRS and this PD is to add that 4.11 acre site to this PD, and to make the remaining PD that's owned by the FDOT consistent with current conditions. The project site is in the right location generally. It complements the neighborhood context and is compatible with surrounding development. And finally, do appreciate that Planning Commission has found the request consistent and Development Services approvable, subject to conditions. Thank you. And happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have no questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Corbett, anything further? Okay, Development Services, please.
Michelle Heinrich, Development Services. As you heard, the applicant is requesting to rezone a portion of PD 85-0262 and adjacent parcels currently zoned AS1 and RSC6 to PD to allow up to a maximum of 238 multifamily units And this number is achieved using both a flex of the Res 20 future land use category found to the east and the provision of the gray water technology bonus found in Florida State Statute 403.892. Also, as you heard from the applicant, there is a companion PRS that will travel to the same board meeting with this to recognize this property coming out of the 85 PD. The general area consists of high-intensity uses such as apartments, hotels, and commercial along Causeway Boulevard west of Highway 301. In keeping with the existing and future development, the project will consist of 60-foot-tall structures to accommodate the maximum of 238 units. The project has been designed to provide setbacks in keeping with the required 2-to-1 setback due to height where adjacent to residential, which is found to the east and to the south. Staff does not object to noncompliance with the 2-to-1 setback due to height along the west due to the use of that adjacent property, which is a 200-foot wide TECO parcel with overhead power lines. Staff received no objections from reviewing agencies and a finding of consistency from the Planning Commission. Therefore, we do recommend approval subject to proposed conditions. I'm available if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Planning Commission?
Bryce Veringer, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is located within the Residential 9 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and is located within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan. Residential 9 extends to the north, west, and southwest. Residential 20 is located directly east and further northwest. Community Mixed Use 12 is located directly south and extends further southeast. Further west along Causeway Boulevard is the Office Commercial 20 future land use designation. The proposed rezoning is consistent with Objective 1 and Policy 1.4 of the future land use element, as it would encourage compatible development within the urban service area. The area contains a mix of uses including single-family residential, multifamily residential, and public institutional uses. The applicant requests a flex with the adjacent future land use category of Residential 20 to the east. The second and third development options incorporate the Florida Gray Water Density Bonus in addition to the flex request. In coordination with the Hillsborough County Attorney's Office, Planning Commission staff have determined that the Florida Statute 403.892 Gray Water Density Bonus is non-discretionary and must be applied and considered through the application of a flex request under Policies 7.3 and 7.4 of the future land use element. The proposed modification meets the intent of future land use element Objective 16 and several of its associated policies, as the multifamily development complements the existing range of residential development options within the area. The subject site is located along an arterial roadway in the urban service area, which is a preferred location for high-density residential development. The proposal will also ensure a gradual transition of residential uses between Causeway Boulevard and the single-family units that are located south of the subject site. Similarly, the proposal is consistent with Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the Community Design Component, which encouraged new developments to be designed in a manner that is consistent with the predominant character of the surrounding area. The maximum building height of 60 feet is similar in nature to the existing multifamily development located directly east of the site and is complementary to the area. The proposal is consistent with the intent of the Greater Palm River Community Plan of the Livable Communities element. The proposed development will meet the community's goals of encouraging well-designed, compatible densities and intensities at appropriate location. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed major modification consistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, subject to the conditions proposed by the Development Services Department.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in support of this application? Do not hear anyone. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? All right, do not hear anyone. Development Services, anything further?
Nothing further, ma'am.
Okay. Applicant, anything further? No? All right. That closes the hearing on rezoning PD 23-0777.
Our next item is item D6, PD rezoning 23-0884. The applicant is requesting to rezone a portion of PD 83-0211 to the proposed PD. Camille Crocta with Development Services will provide staff finding after the applicant's presentation.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Singer with the law firm of Older Lundy at 1000 West Cass Street here in Tampa. I'm joined by Colin Rice, my colleague. We're going to go old school tonight and use the Elmo as opposed to the technology provided on the computer. I'm joined with by Chase Powell and Miguel Chico from the applicant group, LDC Acquisitions, along with Michael Yates from Palm Traffic. We're here this evening to request a rezone for a new PD for the property located at 2700 University Square Drive. To orient you, we are within the university area community, within the urban service area, and very near the City of Tampa jurisdictional boundary. The property is between two of the region's anchors, the University Square Mall to the west and USF to the east, just across from Bruce B. Downs. We're proposing a compatible mixed-use infill development to connect these institutions. Zooming in, you get a better sense of existing efforts to connect the institutions through this infill development. Immediately to the east is a development called the Standard. This was rezoned in 2017 by the same applicant group, and it has a density of 50 units per acre, equal to what we are requesting this evening. To the north is a county-owned strip of land that holds a drainage ditch and offers additional buffering to existing residential uses. There's approximately 60 feet between the subject site and the nearest residential property boundary and the northernmost boundary of our project. This is in addition to the 30-foot north setback. There would be over 90 feet between our structure and the nearest single-family home. This is consistent with what was proposed and approved in 2017. To the west is the innovative University Mall project, which includes a myriad of uses, including very dense multifamily development. And to the south is commercial development, a portion of which actually is subject to this PD approval we're seeking to rezone out of this evening. A companion PRS application numbered 24-0111, removing these 4.31 acres, is filed to run concurrent with this application at the January Board of County Commissioners hearing. The site currently functions as a strip commercial center constructed in 1985, and the top view you see here is facing east from Club Drive, and the bottom view is facing north from University Square Drive. This is the Standard development right next door. Again, it's owned and operated by the applicants. The current proposal is nearly identical to this very successful, very compatible student housing development. The future land use shows our OC20 property positioned between two high-density categories, RMU 35 to the east and ICMU 35 to the west. The public, quasi-public designation to the east is the USF campus sitting within the City of Tampa. For additional context, the site just south of Fowler, marked by a red star, is approved at over 42 units per acre within the City of Tampa, less than a quarter mile away. And with the application of the Florida Legislature's new Live Local Act, you could see that developed at over 100 units per acre. This is the site plan. The applicant is proposing to develop the 4.31 acre site into a vertically integrated mixed-use project with a residential density of 50 dwelling units per acre, not to exceed 215 units, along with 1,550 square foot retail component. We're proposing a 3-foot setback along the west with 30-foot setbacks along all the other frontages. Vehicular access will be provided directly off both University Square Drive and Club Drive. Those are both private roads. Cross access is provided to the the sister property to the east. Note that the northern setback of this site and the eastern sister site are the same. In coordination with County Transportation Engineers' comments, the applicant proposes to install crosswalks at the vehicular ingress-egress serving the property across University Square, across that private road to the existing commercial development to the south. Additionally, to connect the project to the mall, they will build a crosswalk and a 12-foot sidewalk at Club Drive to the west. An 8-foot sidewalk is proposed to the south along University Square Drive. For parking, the site will include 0.78 vehicle parking spaces per bed and 202 bicycle parking spaces. The comprehensive plan is full of language concerning pedestrian connectivity. This proposal promotes many of its goals and its policies, including Future Land Use Policy 16.10, Community Design Element Policy 2-1.3, and the university area's community plan vision is to, quote, achieve a pedestrian-friendly mixed-use area that will serve the needs of the citizens of the university area community, unquote. This proposal is widely supported. None of the engineering, spatial, transportation, environmental, safety, or compatibility elements are of any concern. This project is exactly what this part of the university area community calls for. Our team, along with the applicant team, held a neighborhood meeting last month, and we were joined by 3 long-term residents of the single-family neighborhood to the north. They had no objections to the proposal before you this evening. They were also very complimentary of their years-long relationship living nearby the standard, which again approved back in 2017. This project would be developed in an extremely similar manner to the established standard project, with a nearly identical building footprint and an equivalent density of 50 dwelling units per acre. And I want to emphasize that this proposal will represent a net decrease in vehicular trip generation. The site is currently operating as a commercial strip center. The county's traffic engineer agrees, has no objection. The staff report also says the following, quote, staff finds the proposed rezoning compatible with the development pattern of medium to high density housing in the area, unquote. So after all that, we get to the crux of the discussion tonight that is not in agreement between the applicant and the staff. Despite these findings of consistency by the staff, they found it not supportable in their report. This is seemingly based not on compatibility or consistency, but on an opinion relating to the comp plan's flex provision and how it interplays with its bonus provision. Our office submitted a memorandum addressing this in detail on November the 8th of 2023. It is in the record. We will provide you another copy tonight for your convenience. In short, county staff feels that one cannot bonus a flex. This is not in the comprehensive plan anywhere. Nowhere does it say that a parcel once flexed doesn't mean that it's all the way flexed into that category. The County Commission has made the flex available to applicants to make the development process easier, not more difficult. Future Land Use Policy 7.3 specifies when a flex provision may be considered for any given projects, and this application squarely meets those elements. When those elements are met, the comprehensive plan land use categories, quote, may be considered for interpretation as flexible boundaries, unquote. They can move by 500 feet in either direction. There is no suggestion that those boundaries, once flexed, do not carry the rights, the recognition, and the privileges of that flexed into category. And this seems obvious because, of course, why would anyone flex at all if they don't have the rights into the new category that they flex into? Our initial submittal narrative dated August the 3rd, 2023 addresses each of the 7.3 flex criteria in detail. We meet all those criteria. There is no disagreement about if we meet those criteria. They are shared in full here, and I am not going to belabor you by reading all of them, but we will introduce them into the record. So here, this parcel is positioned in between two very intense land uses. Our site is outlined in green. We elected to flex from the RMU 35 to the east, but as you can see, the ICMU 35 category exists immediately to the west as well. We could have flexed from either direction. It must follow, it just must, that once a flex is complete, it is considered part of the designation it receives. Again, nowhere in the code or the comp plan does it suggest otherwise, and why would it? For analogy purposes, this would be like a minor league baseball player at AAA Durham being promoted to the Tampa Bay Rays and being told, even though he's on the Rays, even though he can play at the stadium, he couldn't wear the uniform. It would be nonsensical for the flex not to enjoy all the benefits of this new category. Why flex in otherwise? Again, nowhere in the code or the comp plan does it say that some of the benefits of the flex category can be used, but others cannot. Once it's clear that the flex is appropriate, then we get to the bonus analysis. The bonus we seek is the mixed use bonus. Again, the University Area Community Plan envisions a pedestrian-friendly mixed use area that will serve the needs of the citizens of the university area community. And the mixed use bonus is supposed to incentivize that. That is the very same bonus used by the sister project to the east with what would be the exact same land use designation. But again, the staff report makes another improper conclusion to claim the bonus is not available. In short, they just applied the wrong policy. Rather than reference policy 19.3, which outlines mixed use density bonus provision, the staff report cites policy 19.1. 19.1 is a policy that requires, quote, larger, unquote, new projects in mixed use land categories to include 10% of the square footage as a different land use. Larger, quote unquote, means projects 10 acres or greater. Our project is 4.31 acres, so this 10% requirement does not apply. For more analysis on this, I will refer you to the written memorandum submitted into the record on November 8th, but once again, this seems fairly obvious and straightforward. 19.1 simply just doesn't apply. So what we're left with is a project eligible for a flex designation. Everybody agrees on that. And then a bonus opportunity. Nowhere in the code or comp plan says otherwise. This project is virtually identical to the standard development next door, which was found supportable by staff and approved in 2017. The only meaningful difference between the 2017 proposal and the 2023 proposal is that we have chosen to use the flex provision, a tool made available by the County Commission to make development easier. It simply has to be that if you flex, you flex. There is nothing otherwise in the code or the comp plan. This project is consistent with existing development, therefore in harmony with future land use policy 16.10. It encourages more pedestrian activity while decreasing trip generation. There is a natural significant separation between the subject site and any single family residential. At our community meeting, no neighbors appeared to oppose the project. We're not aware of any opposition. To wrap up, we are all beholden to the language of the code. I've done this for almost 2 decades now. And what we always do when we submit a development application is make sure that we are adhering to the specific provisions and specific language of the code. The staff ensures it. We have interplay between applicant and staff very frequently with the admonition from staff saying you must adhere to the strict language of the code. It seems with this application the tables have turned a bit. And the staff is saying, we feel that there is no ability to bonus a flex, but they can't point to a code provision that says you cannot bonus a flex. And again, it seems nonsensical to be able to enjoy the benefits, all of them, of the category you flex into, but then stop short of one critical component that's unwritten. So with all of that, we ask that you approve this application tonight, and we're here to answer questions for you.
All right, well, a couple of questions. First of all, and maybe you covered this and I missed it, but your numbers,
How many units are you seeking to?
Not to exceed 215.
Okay, and that is with the bonus?
Correct.
And without the bonus, how many could you achieve?
We would be limited to 35 units an acre times 4.31 acres, so we would lose 60 to 70 units.
Okay. And so as it stands, and I will hear from, of course, Development Services and the Planning Commission, but as it stands, the application has been found inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. And it's the applicant's burden, of course, to prove consistency. Can you point me to any competent substantial evidence in the record, then, that I can find consistency?
Yes, I would point you to the code provision 7.3. And when you read the land use provision 7.3, nowhere does it say that you cannot enjoy all the benefits of the category you flex into. It's a strange position that the county is asking us to prove a negative.
So it sounds like really it's a matter of interpretation.
I would agree that it's a matter of interpretation, but when something is not specifically listed, it inures to the benefit of the applicant. That is the law in Florida and has been for a very long time.
Okay. Is there anything in your record that you've submitted from a certified planner or anything that discusses that interpretation or that has a professional opinion otherwise?
I don't know that there is a professional opinion otherwise, because it seems so blatantly obvious that when you are grandfathered or brought into or flexed into a category, that everything about that category is to your benefit. But no, there is nothing that we have from a planning position, but I would encourage you to read our memorandum.
I certainly will.
Into the record.
I assure you I will.
Okay.
Thank you for that. All right. Thank you,
you.
Mr. Singer. Development Services, please.
Good evening, Camille Crockta, Development Services. As the applicant stated, they are requesting to rezone the subject parcel located at University Square Drive and Club Drive from Plan Development PD 830211 to Plan Development for mixed-use building utilizing the flex provision and mixed-use bonus. This application will seek entitlement to construct the vertically integrated mixed-use project on the 4.31 acre site featuring a total of 215 student housing dwelling units and ground floor retail. So I know that there is a similar project with similar development standards next door, phase one of this project. However, for zoning compatibility, we find that it does not meet the requirements of the mixed-use density bonus, as the developer must allocate at least 10% of the total building square footage for uses other than the primary use. And as stated, only 1,550 square feet, which comprises less than 1% of the total square footage of the building, about 187,000 plus square feet of the primary use. Notwithstanding the issue regarding whether the utilization of both the flex and mixed-use density bonus can be considered for the project, staff finds the proposed rezoning compatible with development pattern in the area of medium to high density uses in the area, but the request is not supportable by staff based on noncompliance with the mixed-use density bonus criteria. And this concludes my staff report.
All right, thank you. Planning Commission.
Bryce Faringer, Planning Commission staff. The subject property is in the Office Commercial 20 future land use category. It is in the urban service area and is located within the limits of the University Area Community Plan. The subject site is surrounded by Residential 20 and Residential 6 to the north, Regional Mixed Use 35 to the east, Office Commercial 20 further east and to the south, and Innovation Corridor Mixed Use 35 to the west. The applicant proposes to flex the adjacent Regional Mixed Use 35 category that is located to the east in accordance with the future land use element policies 7.3 and 7.4. A flex does not ultimately change the future land use map category and therefore cannot be used as a base for a bonus within the comprehensive plan. Rather, it is something above and beyond what is underlying as the maximum density and intensity set on a site. Base densities and intensities are established with the future land use map and can only be changed through a comprehensive plan map amendment. While the density and intensity of the RMU 35 future land use category may be compatible with the surrounding land uses and their densities and intensities, the overall request does not further the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning does not meet the intent of the neighborhood protection policies of the future land use element. There is no way to ensure a gradual transition in intensity between land uses with all of the variations requested. Due to the intensity of the proposed uses encroaching into the residential uses adjacent to the north, Planning Commission staff does not support multiple variations based on conflicts with several comprehensive plan compatibility policies. The community design component discusses how new development shall be compatible with the established character of the surrounding area. It encourages commercial developments that enhance the county's character. The development pattern and character in this area of the University Square Mall does contain mixed-use commercial and residential developments as well as single-family residential uses to the north. However, the proposed site design variations prevent compatibility concerns and therefore conflict with this policy direction. The proposed plan development meets the intent of goals 2 and 5 of the University Area Community Plan, as it includes redevelopment opportunity within the urban and infill redevelopment area map. However, goal 3 in the plan aims to use landscape buffers and urban design features and techniques to reduce conflicts between land uses, and the proposed density in the OC20 site design variations may not provide the opportunity for a gradual transition in intensity between the single-family residential developments to the north. Based upon the above considerations, Planning Commission staff finds the proposed plan development inconsistent with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in support of this application? Not hearing anyone. Is there anyone here or online who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? All right, do not hear anyone. Development Services, anything further?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Applicant, anything further?
Again, David Singer for the applicant. I know it's been a long evening, and so I'll keep this very brief. In regards to Development Services and zoning's presentation, I would again say Section 19.1 does not apply. Section 19.3 does apply. I would encourage, again, you to reference our memorandum on that. It is very clear. We are less than 10 acres. It is a 4.31 acre site. Therefore, there is no 10% requirement for that mixed use component. As to the Planning Commission, again, I would point you to land use policies themselves. There is not a policy that the Planning Commission can identify that says you cannot bonus a flexed designation. It does not exist. And because it does not exist, of course it means that it inures to the benefit of the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this closes the hearing on rezoning PD 23-0884, and this concludes the zoning hearing master meeting for this evening.